Welcome back, you filthy exiles. Finally I'm getting around to doing this build guide. I said I was going to do it ages ago and I haven't gotten around to it, so I'm finally doing it. So this is my Righteous Fire build guide. And you would have seen me play this in Delve, you would have seen me play this all through the game, clear maps, clear all the endgame, except Maven, and it's not because this build can't do it, it's because I suck at fighting Maven. But outside of that, and I really hate that they made that a pinnacle boss. But anyway, outside of that, this build has done everything and is pretty much my go-to this league. I've played this from league start. I got into level 95. I played like 6 or 7 different builds, failed at 3. You know, dumped tons of currency into other builds and sort of left this one to the wayside. Once this just started clearing through everything, it was just ridiculous. Got it to about 500 in Delve, about 450, 500, around about that mark. The reason why I stopped pushing is it just stops being fun after a certain point, because your damage drops off and you just sort of sit on enemies for 10 years trying to kill them, and that's not enjoyable for anybody. But, you know, there's the masochists out there that love doing that, and if I was going to push Delve, there's a very different build I would play for that. But anyway, outside of that, this build has just been tremendous from league start. Very easy to level up. People always ask me how I level this build up. Very easily, literally freezing pulse, and then as soon as you can get IRF, enduring cry, and then pretty much all you're going to do is max out these clusters here, or these nodes here. So Solar Steel gives you 1+ to all elemental resistances, Prismatic Skin +2 to all elemental resistances, and obviously maximum fire resist. And then the other thing you want to do is get Purity of Fire and level that up as quickly as you can, and then Bob's your uncle, you're at max level, and that's pretty easily done. At least max level, or at least close to max level for fire res. Now, what type of damage does my version of this build do? Because everybody has a version of this build. Mine isn't the strongest in the damage department. I do about a collective 1.8 million deeps, and this is coming off 1.2 million fire dot or ignite dot from Fire Trap. Which has been super powerful this league, a complete sleeper skill, but scales really well on this particular build. And then RF itself is doing about 616,000. This, out of all the combinations I've played with this, was the best play, and pretty much all the builds in the ladder and in the league itself all used a similar sort of skill setup, but mine does it a little differently. We're going to use max block. So outside of that, config settings, always moving, 3 brands. We use brands to proc a few different things. I believe we do have Onslaught, potentially, but if we don't, no biggie there. Life Tap comes off the Fire Trap, so we do have Life Tap. Actually, we don't have Unholy Might, take that out too. We do use Endurance Charges, there is a generator for that, and I'm pretty sure I do generate Frenzy Charges somewhere, but anyway, we'll talk through that anyway. If we've killed recently, obviously we're playing Inquisitor here, so we're going to be on consecrated ground all the time. Enemies are covered in ash. That occurs when we drop our Infernal Cry. So that allows us to cover enemies in ash. We do way more damage then. Enemies are ignited, they're always burning, and again on consecrated ground, and this is Cyrus damage. There's no weird or wacky bullshit in this tree, it's pretty straightforward. And even the gearing is very straightforward, and we'll talk that through in this particular build. So anyway, the mechanics of this build is pretty much you pop RF, it burns everything around you, you drop your Fire Trap when you hit bosses or anything biggie, and then they just go off and light everything on fire. Pretty straightforward, and then we just basically shield charge around the maps and clear everything on the map and kill bosses and everything. Where mine is unique is it is running max block, so if we have a look at max block, we have 75% max block, or at least spell block, and 72% attack block. And this is basically coming from glancing blows in unison with our, where is it? It's somewhere in here. There we go, Tempest Shield. So we're running Tempest Shield on this too, which is what gives us that huge amount of spell block, and pretty much is how it works on every single build that does max block these days. Really good skill, was underrated, it is now used commonly. A few other things that this build has, almost maximum chaos resist. Overcap resistances, obviously, for fire res, cold res, and lightning res, so I take like basically no damage from elemental resistances. We've also got 75% resistance against chaos dot over time. So pretty much between chaos and everything, we're completely immune. 30% crit reduction. We've got 100% shock avoidance because we're running Tempest Shield and that has shock avoidance. Freeze avoidance 24%. Not so great on this. If I took Brine King, that would fix that, but I don't want to take Brine King. Reason why is I'm just a little lazy, and also I found the Soul of Arakali to be more important in that and stopping chaos dot over time. That being said, and it also gives you 20% increased recovery, life rate, or energy shield if you stop taking dot. So I can sustain dot, but then freeze is a problem. So you know, pick or choose your devils in this one. Outside of that, we're looking at, you know, 20,000 up to 23,000 armor. So we've got a shit ton of armor on this, and that goes up the further that, you know, we obviously play through. Life regeneration, 1,500, 1,700 energy shield regeneration per second. That's not like recharge rate, that's per second. So we have a huge amount of energy shield regen, is what I'm getting at there. Outside of that, we do use a few different things with max block, where this is a glancing blow build that uses reckoning and life on hit. So we get life on hit when we block. We also generate energy shield from using the Aegis Aurora. So huge amounts of energy shield gain there off the Aegis. And then obviously life on hit to the value of 54 life every time we block, which is tremendous for this particular build. I will talk through very briefly how to craft this helmet, though actually I might do that in a different video. It's pretty straightforward. I've been promising that, and I'll do that in a different video. But we are using a very basic, well, I'll just tell you now. Basically, how you get this helm is you take Elder Helm level 85, item level 85 or up. I think it's Essence of Horror. I think it is Essence of Horror, Essence of Envy. No, Essence of Horror. And you pretty much just Essence of Horror spam to get this particular modifier. There is a way to do this smarter, and a way to do this that costs a lot more currency and input but uses fossils, but that's something we can talk about at a later date. If you really want to up the damage, you can. This does it for me, and this gives me, you know, intelligence, more regeneration, everything else. So a couple of things you should also understand about RF is you're going to want to really scale up your energy, your life regeneration rate. And you can see this on my gloves. I've got 16% increased life regeneration rate. I also use a replica at Series Foible, which, you know, at this time is like 30 chaos, yeah, 35 chaos, dirt cheap. And this gives you 24%, at least the roll that I've got. And pretty much everything else, we're gonna just increase life recovery, life regen, anything that we possibly can. The only thing on this build that's a little bit shitty is my armor. And that's just because I'm lazy. And even on this, I've got the new implicits, which gives me 9% of damage taken, recoup as life. So that's pretty crazy for RF as well. And then that's pretty much it to this build. Now, don't take note of my wand. I'll talk about this. It should be a scepter, and it should have elemental damage because spell damage does not scale damage for RF. And also, I'm doing myself an injustice here because I don't have a +1 roll either. That's simply because I got sidetracked and did other builds, and this build was sufficiently powerful. But I might come back to it and fix it up in the coming days, and I'll just push some more delve. This build is perfect for delve, and you can horizontally farm delve 400 with no problems, which is a good sort of point to pick up currency. And there'll be a guide coming out relating to that in the next coming days. I've been promising, and I'm finally working on it. Yeah, anyway, that's pretty much the build. This can face tank a lot of shit. Is it as powerful as my Vortex build? And people have asked me that. My Gigatank Vortex build. It's not far off, but it's not quite as tanky as that, though it does do a lot more damage than that build, and it's way better at clearing than that build in maps and delve and everything else. That build in particular was just crazy at just cheesing the end game and not having to worry about dying. This is a little bit different, and I'm doing a similar build to the Vortex build currently with Absolution, and we'll talk about that at a later date. Because I've got a couple of iterations of that build. I'm generating currency to do what I really want to do with that build. But anyway, let's get back to this build guide. Anyway, so let's get into the weapons and armor and talk about that, and then we'll go through a standard build guide setup, and I'll talk through how this all works. Alright, so weapons and armor, or gearing, however we want to look at it. So I am using a wand on this build. This is not the right item to be using on this build. I'll just coin that out straight away before people slam the shit out of me over this. the reason why is RF doesn't scale off spell damage. So ideally, and I'll put it up on the screen, what you want is a scepter, and it needs to have all the same modifiers. You don't need the crit multi or the fire damage on hit, but you do need a lot of dot, burning, and fire damage. And then outside of that, +1 to fire skills, and also any elemental damage rolls that you can get on it. That'll be perfect for that particular item. Helm, I am using a 4-link RF style helm, which gives me level 18 concentrated effect and 30% increased elemental damage. As I said, this is an Essence of Horror craft, so basically you could just get a shitload of Essence of Horrors and a level 85 Elder Helm, whatever helm if you're choosing, whether it's ES or not. And then basically just spam that until you get these modifiers. There is a way to do it through fossil crafting, but that's more likely another video and not for this video. Shield is my favorite shield, as you guys have seen in like the other bajillion builds I've done, and like every other build I've done this league. Aegis Aurora. I've done like 3 or 4 builds this league with Aegis Aurora. I just love this shield. It's the best shield in the game. The reason why I use this is max cold resist, max chance to block, or chance to block is increased by 6%, huge amounts of armor, and replenishes energy shield by 2% of armor when you block. On max block characters, this is immense. When you have like 20 to 30,000 armor, you're basically just fully sustaining energy shield every time you block. Pretty much the main reason I use this shield. It just goes into giga tank level, and it's good fun. Replica at Series Foible is the amulet that we're going to use on this build. And we're going to use Arsonist because this is going to give us increased fire dot over time and life regeneration per second. For our chest piece, you can pretty much do anything you want with the chest piece, but you want to focus on maximum life, armor, energy shield, and you also want to get any resistances and any other modifiers. Now, I can't fit it in because I didn't have the right prefix modifiers or another spot, but you want 10% of life converted to energy shield as well if you can craft it on there. I can't do that with this chest piece. I could have changed this at any time, but I'm lazy. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, as far as the pinnacle modifiers or the implicits, I've crafted on 9% damage recruiter's life, and yeah, 20% extra ES when a unique enemy's around. Now, a better way to go about this would have been to craft on implicit resistance rolls, and that's another route that you can go, and that's just going to make you even stronger. So implicit all resist by like 1 or 2%. Will make you just that little bit more tanky and make RF function a little bit better. Rings, literally just focusing on chaos resistance, life, attributes, and any other resistances where possible. I do have an unset ring, and this is so I can fit 1 extra gem in here, which lets me run Tempest Shield. And then the other side of it is an amethyst ring. This has got like, was that 47% chaos res, and life and some item rarity as well. I don't think I've got rarity on this one, but as you can see, I'm deliberately focusing on chaos res because for this build to work, you want to max out chaos res, and that makes you just tanky across the board. This applies to a lot of different builds. You can do this same strategy with a lot of different builds. Chaos res is actually not as hard as you'd think to get, and if you use amethyst rings, you can do it really easily and get like 50 on each ring, get 100% chaos res, and almost be, you know, like 20-30% max capped, and just find that somewhere else in the build. We do have spike gloves, but the only reason why I have these is I got these for cheap, and I re-rolled the implicits anyway. You actually want to have fire exposure on your implicit craft and fire damage over time multiplier. I just did a bad job at rolling mine. You can probably do a much better job than me. That's, you know, pretty straightforward stuff. Outside of that, life regeneration rate, life, chaos res on this, and also, yeah, that's pretty much it. And in this case, I do have more life regeneration that I've crafted on because I want as much life regen as possible. Soul Tether. Pretty much this is the most important unique for this build to work, though not necessarily vital. What it does give you is Corrupted Soul, which is like 10, I think it's 10% of your life is converted to, or is added as additional energy shield. And also it splits the damage between your life and your energy shield, so they take damage equally. And then outside of that, 5% of maximum life is added as extra energy shield as well. So this is a really good belt for this particular build for that reason, because the way that it works is your life and ES go down at the same rate, so that they apply the same amount of damage. So if you can match your energy shield with your life, they go down at the same rate and they regen quickly as well because of the Inquisitor ascendancy. Lastly, these boots were never really good in any other league, but they've been monolithically good this league, and that's the Legacy of Fury. I think I paid like 2 Exalt for it, and then it dropped to like 3 Chaos by like the second week or whatever when everything became available. Now it's 4 Chaos. It went up in value by 1. Anyway, this does Scorch to all enemies in the vicinity. Does a huge amount of damage to everything, and you get an increased effect of Scorch to every enemy. And it's sort of like a explodey chest that isn't an explodey chest, but is pretty much a critical item in the build. Makes it work great. If you have a look at most RF builds are running these, with the exceptions of the few that have like a mirror level boots. And the other thing you want to have on this is 80% chance to avoid being stunned, and this deals with stun locking. So that gets you through. That extra 20% you could roll out and have it on your flasks or whatever. Talking about flasks, literally just Eternal Life flask, just for good measure. We're using a Quicksilver flask, and as you'll see, all of these are rolled with use charges when reach full, and also have 5 charges when you get hit by an enemy or roundabouts. Ruby flask, obviously, we want to max cap fire res, and any fire damage we take 20% less fire damage. And also this gives us 41% armor, and we stack a shitload of armor, so this is good for us. And then that leads me to Granite Flask, and this gives me chill and frozen duration reduction, and this gives me 6 charges when hit, and this is always sort of popping, so that buffs up my armor even more. And finally, Forbidden Taste. And the reason why I use this flask is it's the only health-based flask, if we want to call it that you can use where you can actually craft a craft on it. And in this case, because we have maximum chaos resist, we take no chaos damage off of this flask, so it has no downside at all. It's literally OP as shit. You could run this on any build as long as you max cap chaos resistances, and then basically what that's going to result in is you being able to get 100% life back when you take a savage hit. And a savage hit's like over 50% or whatever, so you take a big hit and then you get all your life back. So it's a pretty damn good deal. Underutilized and undervalued flask, really good if you build a character the right way. Will only work on life characters though, won't work on energy shield based characters, so that's one thing just to be aware of. But that's pretty much the gearing. This is a very simple build sort of gear. Next section we'll talk about gem setups. Alright, gem setup. So in the helm, we've obviously got our RF style helm, and this gives us +1 to the level of AoE gems as well, because we've crafted that on. And then we're going to run Righteous Fire, level 21 Righteous Fire. We're going to run Awaken Increased Area of Effect. We're going to run Awaken Elemental Focus. In the tree that I'll provide, these are level 5, but I haven't leveled these up far enough. And then also Awaken Burning Damage. All this attributes to, a lot of shit. When you get Awaken Burning Damage and Awaken Elemental Focus, this will give you +2 to your RF, and this will spike it up to like 800-900,000 deep. So, dot damage, sorry. So it'll do a lot of damage. In the shield, I'm running Malevolence, Determination, and Purity of Fire. And that's just because I hit max cap fire resistances, we're stacking armor, and Malevolence is to increase our dot. In my wand, I'm running Reckoning and life gain on hit. Because we're running max block, we can use Reckoning so that we get that life gain on hit, which keeps our life going when we're in Delve in particular. Infernal Cry as well, just when we're running around, we can pop that and, be awesome and do more damage. In my unset ring, Tempest Shield, because we want to max out our spell block. Then in my gloves, Flammability, Arcanist Brand, Flame Surge, and also Life Tap. In this build, we don't use any mana, except for Infernal Cry. And the reason why is we just don't have any real mana. We have 30 mana, so we don't want to be using mana, and that's how we get around it. Sorry, we'll go back to that. And then in my boots, Molten Shell, faster attacks, shield charge, and life tap. So again, we're just using life, and we regenerate so much life that we don't notice that. So that's all good. And then finally in my chest, I'm using my fire trap setup. So level 21 fire trap, awaken burning damage, life tap support. You would want awaken elemental focus support, but in this case I'm throwing 20 quality elemental focus, awaken swift affliction, and then awaken control destruction as well. And that's pretty much it for gem setups. Really basic stuff. Follow that. That's pretty much how to do it. And we're just focusing on scaling a shitload of dot. Anyway, let's talk about the tree in the next section. Alright, so this isn't actually a crazy tree to build out. When you first build this tree out, you're going to follow this path in here, but you're actually going to build down to get to these nodes here first. And then you can respec, so you can do that either way. What I basically did was just build down this pathway here, and then just follow the line and then pick up these nodes as soon as you can. That'll enable you to get to RF by like level 30, 35. That's the whole secret of this build, honestly. It's a piece of piss apart from that. So anyway, we follow the int nodes here. We don't take these internal nodes because we lose one extra skill point that we don't have. Then we come down, we'll pick up Sanctity. This will give us regen, discipline and training, scale out our health. Then we're going to get Holy Dominion for resistance and elemental damage, and also ignite. Then we'll come down, we'll get Glancing Blows, and we'll pick up our max block nodes. So Sanctuary, that'll get our block chance and our resistances up. Then we come down, we're going to grab Devotion, and then we'll move down. We want Hearty because we want that regen, and then Life Mastery on this. Then we'll come in, pick Barbarism. This will give us +1 to fire, maximum fire resist. So this will start dealing with our fire resist problem. And then we come down, grab 30% extra damage from critical strikes is reduced. And the Juggernaut point here. Then you want to come and grab your Prismatic Skin. Bloody hell, always when I'm recording. Prismatic Skin, Corrupted Blood Immunity, and also Max Fire Res. Don't worry about Lightning or Cold Res, they're just wasted points. So you can get them if you want, but you don't need to. Then come down and pick up Solar Steel. You also want to have Determination, has 25% increased mana efficiency because we're running Determination, no doi. Then we'll come down, pick up Bloodless, start scaling up HP, and we want to grab the Reservation Mastery here and the Reservation Efficiency nodes, and this 8% node here, as well as Champion of the Cause. Then we'll come up, and we will also want to grab Heart of the Warrior. This is going to increase our HP again, which is good. So then we come back up, so we're going back to this node here. We follow this up here, pick up our Aura nodes, because that's important to this build. We're stacking a shitload of Auras. Purity of Flesh, Holy Fire. You want to get the Fire Mastery here for 20% dot. It'll knock your fire res down, but we won't need to worry because we're running Purity of Elements anyway, so that'll offset and it'll be fine. Then we want to grab Arcane Guarding, and this is going to give us more ES from our Energy Shield. Ignore this cluster node, we'll talk about that shortly. Then we'll come down and pick up Acrimony, and this is going to give us increased dot. If you do need attribute points, you can pick these up here. Then we'll come across and we'll grab the Fire Mastery node and Breath of Flames, and also 20% chance to cover enemies on Ash when they hit you, and you're always going to be taking damage, so that's going to happen. And then you'll come down and pick up the Cruel Preparations, and I use Vitality in this build because I managed to fit it in. So Vitality has 100% increased mana efficiency. Then finally, when we get to like level 80, we're going to put our cluster node in, or like level 76 or whatever it is. And so we're going to pick up Burning Bright, Disorientating Display, and Prismatic Skin, and then a small cluster with Smoking Remains and Student of Decay. This is going to increase our dot, this is going to increase our fire damage, this is going to increase our burning damage, this will increase, this will actually blind enemies nearby, which is really good for this build, and then Prismatic Skin is going to give us resistance and flat elemental damage. Now, I do only have like 2 jewels in this entire build. This is really basic, this build. One is a Watcher's Eye with increased life recovery rate, life and energy shield recovery rate while I've got Malevolence. And then 10% of physical damage from hits is taken as fire damage while affected by Purity of Fire. The reason why we want that Purity of Fire roll, and this is not the best thing to get, there is a Malevolence dot roll that you can get which would exponentially increase your damage. But the reason why we want to use Purity of Fire here is because we're max capping fire damage, and if we convert physical to fire, then it hits against the max capped elemental resistance and we take reduced damage, as opposed to just taking that on the chin with physical damage. And then outside of that, we just have a strength, fire damage over time multiplier, and flat increased life jewel. Now, you do want burning damage on these, but that's going to cost you like 1 or 2x, whereas this is dirt cheap, and this build is relatively affordable with the exception of a few things, especially at this point in the league. That's pretty much the tree. Now, outside of that, for the Ascendancies, we're going to always pick up Pious Path first with RF because we want to get that regeneration started. So once you have this Consecrated Path of Pious Path, you're just going to regenerate like a madman, and it's going to be a piece of cake to scale this out as you level up. Then you want to get Augury of Penitence, and the reason why you want that is increased elemental damage to nearby enemies and reduced elemental damage taken, or enemies deal 8% less elemental. And then finally, Righteous Providence is just going to stack literally strength and int, because you can't really take Instrument of Virtue, so that's a pointless node to allocate anywhere else. So you might as well get some strength and int from that. That's just going to increase your life, your ES, and your armor. So that's pretty much it. That's it for the tree. It's a really basic tree. It's not too hard to build, no crazy clusters, relatively cheap, and you just have to follow the process, and it's easy as pie. You can do that as you level up Freezing Pulse. Honestly, just do this strat and come down here, and it's all good. Pick up these nodes first, and then focus on the rest of the tree after that. But that's it for the tree. Alright, as discussed before, Soul of Arakali. This is just going to deal with dot, increase recovery or regeneration. And then also your Solar Growth Cool, and this is just going to slow enemies' attack damage down and also increase your physical damage reduction. So it's really good nodes. You could take Solar Tukahama, but you don't really want to be standing still all the time, and it makes sense to slow. So some of the Solar Steel enemies with with Archnem are really bad on this build, and this reduces their attack speed by 8%, so that's pretty important. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the Pantheon. Alright, finally, MTX is on this build. So we're using the Elite Ember Keeper helm, body armor, boots, and gloves. I really like it, it looks really cool. Scavenger Footprints, I have the Vulcan Shield, I have the Supreme Ember Keeper Apparition. Yes, I bought the $100 pack like a madman. Also the wings for Ember Keeper as well, the Ember Keeper weapon, and the Scavenger Weapon effect. Now, I do have Regal Rowers from the beta, which you cannot get anymore. So yeah, that's going to suck for anybody who wants those. And I also have the Ember Keeper portrait frame and the fire portal effect, because it's just really cool, and it's an RF build and fire, you know, go figure. Outside of that, I don't think I'm using, and just the Dragon Hunter aura effect. Yes, I bought that. Yeah, sometimes I have no sense when I'm spending money on MTX. But anyway, yeah, I'm not the worst for it, so that's the MTXs that I'm using on this build. Anyway, I hope this guide sort of helps everybody with their build for RF. There'll be a tree in the description. This isn't the strongest build, and it's by far not the most expensive, but it is a good build. It does everything in the game. It's solid. You can delve, you can do pretty much anything you want to do with it. It's a lot of fun, it's enjoyable, it's easy. If your wrists hurt from long play and crazy builds, this saves your wrists a hell of a lot. And yeah, just overall, it's RF. Like, RF is easy. It's not for everybody, but it's a damn good skill, and it's a hell of a good build, and really good to get your currency up with when you're a little bit desperate, because it's easy to scale. But anyway, I hope this helps you on your path to Righteous Fire. And until next time, like and sub. I'm going to be doing a guide at night at this stage. I got a little bit lazy and I got a bit burnt out from everything, but I'm sort of working my way back up the ladder. So yeah, anyway, watch this space. But until next time, have a good one, and bye.